The Browns did another restructuring deal. They restructured David Njoku's contract, creating $2.736 million in cap space this year. Now they have close to $37 million coming up for this year. Cap space, they lead it by quite a bit. And then you pointed this out. Say what you want about Jimmy Haslam as an owner, but the dude throws money around so the Browns can manage the cap sustainably long term. Not every owner can do it. Not every owner will do it. But Jimmy Haslam has proven that he is willing to do that. That was a tweet that you put out. I agree with you on Haslam without question. Say what you want about him. He's putting the money in and letting Andrew Berry do what he needs to do with the cap. I know you wrote an article trying to explain the contract restructures. Take us through what the thought process was there.
Yeah, so again, Jack Duffin of the OBR or Brad Spielberger of PFF are probably the two guys you want to talk to in much more detail about this, but essentially they're creating a structure in which they can keep their spending and their cap space sustainable long term. So, when you see a player get restructured, what happens is that base salary gets turned into a signing bonus, and then the owner actually has to front that cash for whatever's owed that year. So up to 5 years. So for Myles Garrett, for instance, it was converted $12.9 million, I think it was. So that gets divided through the next 4 years of his contract, 5 years of his contract. So Jimmy Haslam's on the book for $3 million per year that he has to front in order to make that restructure happen. And he's doing that quite a bit with a lot of these guys. Again, David Njoku's is minimal, like that's less than $1 million over the next 3 years to make that happen. But the Myles Garrett one isn't. The Deshaun Watson one absolutely isn't. That's a lot of money to front up there in order to create that cap space. But what it essentially does is $1 in 2023 under this current cap space is always going to be more expensive than $1 next year. So if you can push money to next year where that cap space raises, that $1 is going to take up a less percentage of the cap than it would this year. So that's basically what they're doing. They're taking today's market and trying to kick it down into 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that salary cap where it's a lower percentage of the salary cap in total. And that's kind of the same reason with void years. Like if you look at Juan Thornhill's contract, he's got 4 void years after the 3-year deal runs out of his time in Cleveland. And again, that's just taking that, his $7 million base, breaking it up into prorated bonuses, kicking it down the road where you're paying him $2 million for 2 years and $1 million for a year that he's not even on the roster. But what you're really just trying to do there is take that $2 million in 2027, 2028 and say that's nothing on the cap compared to an extra $2 million on this year's cap based where it sits. So that's basically what they're doing. And again, they're sitting at $54 million in the red white right now. So don't expect this $37 million to free up enough space to go get Chris Jones or Aaron Donald or anybody like that. Yes, they have the flexibility. If an injury happens, they need to go out and they need to add a player in a pinch. If they feel like they've got a really competitive window and they want to go out and add another playmaker at the deadline, it gives them that flexibility. But most of this is going to be rolled over into next year to help with that cap relief for next year. And honestly, they're in a position, as long as Jimmy Haslam is still bountiful with his pockets and willing to front this restructure money, it's a sustainable system where they're going to give themselves an extra 5 to 15% relief on the cap just by manipulating the money that way.